I stood outside the convention center in Austin, gripping my graduation program with sweaty hands. The May sun blazed over the crowded plaza, where families hugged and posed for pictures with their graduates. I scanned the crowd for the 10th time, searching for my parents' car. My phone buzzed, a message from Dad. "Sorry, honey. Your mother isn't feeling well. We can't make it today. Congratulations on your degree." I read it 3 times before the words blurred through the tears forming in my eyes. My mom had sounded perfectly fine when I spoke to her 2 days ago. I knew this wasn't about her health. I called my dad right away. He answered on the 4th ring. "Dad, what's really going on?" "Mom was fine on Tuesday." He sighed. That same heavy sigh I'd grown used to hearing over the past 4 years. "Anne, we've talked about this. Your mother and I can't support your photography business idea. You have a business degree, and instead of finding a stable job, you want to take pictures for a living?" "I've been building my portfolio for 2 years, I said, my voice trembling. "I already have paying clients." "This isn't a hobby. It's irresponsible," he replied. "We paid for your education so you could have stability, not chase unrealistic dreams. Your cousin Gregory just got hired at a bank making $60,000 a year. That's the kind of future we hoped for you." I watched other graduates celebrating with their parents, mothers crying with joy, fathers glowing with pride. My chest felt hollow. "So you're punishing me by not showing up?" "We're not punishing you, Anne. We're being realistic. When you're ready to take your career seriously, we'll be here. Until then, you should figure things out on your own." The call ended. I stood there in silence, the program crushed in my hand. 30 minutes later, my roommate Jessica found me sitting alone on a bench, still in my cap and gown. Her parents and little brother stood beside her, all smiling brightly. "Anne, we've been looking everywhere for you. Come take pictures with us." I forced a smile and joined them, pretending everything was fine. Jessica's mom kept asking where my parents were, her tone full of genuine concern. I muttered something about a family emergency and slipped away as soon as I could. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling. My phone stayed silent. No call, no text, nothing. Their message was clear: follow the safe path they approved of, or lose their support entirely. I thought about Gregory and his steady bank job, about the predictable cubicles and fixed paychecks my parents admired. Then I remembered last week's photo shoot for a local restaurant, how the owner's face lit up seeing her dishes come to life in photos. I thought about the couple who cried tears of joy when I showed them their proposal pictures, telling me I'd captured one of the best moments of their lives. I opened my laptop and looked at my business plan, one I'd spent 8 months refining. Austin's creative industry was booming. Food bloggers, lifestyle influencers, small businesses, all needing quality photography. I had saved $4,000 from freelance work. It wasn't much, but it was something. My parents wanted me to be realistic. Fine. I'd show them what realistic looked like. The next morning, I called my dad again. "I'm going ahead with my business," I said firmly. "I hope you'll support me, but I'm doing this either way." Another sigh. "Then you're on your own, Anne. Don't call asking for help when it fails." "I won't," I replied. He hung up without saying goodbye. I spent that summer working harder than I ever had before. I accepted every photography job I could find, no matter how small. Birthday parties, pet portraits, real estate shoots, even menu photos for cafes that could barely afford me. My days often stretched to 16 hours, editing until my eyes ached, attending every networking event I could sneak into. My parents didn't call once. Jessica had moved back to Dallas. I found a small, affordable studio apartment in East Austin, right above a vintage clothing shop. My neighbors were artists, musicians, and tech professionals, people who shared my drive and ambition. They became my chosen family that year. By September, I officially registered my business. By December, I landed my first major client, a boutique hotel downtown needing a full photography package for their website and marketing. The project paid $12,000. I almost called my parents to share the news. I even drafted a message, but I could still hear my dad's dismissive tone, his confidence that I'd fail, so I deleted it. Let them wonder, that first year was tough. I survived on ramen and peanut butter, reinvesting every dollar into better gear and marketing. I bought a professional camera, 3 quality lenses, lighting equipment, and paid for targeted social media ads. My Instagram grew slowly at first, then faster as my skills and style evolved. Austin's food scene became my niche. I developed a distinct aesthetic, warm, natural light, and close-up shots that made people feel like they could almost taste the food. Restaurant owners began recommending me to each other. Soon, I was booked 3 months in advance. By my second year, I hired my first assistant, Zoe, a recent art school graduate with a great eye and endless enthusiasm. We made an excellent team. She handled setup and equipment, while I focused on creative direction and client relations. My parents still hadn't reached out. I saw their updates on Facebook through mutual friends. Dad had been promoted to regional manager. Mom joined a book club. They shared family photos with my aunt, Uncle Gregory, and his new girlfriend. I wasn't in any of them. It was as if I'd been erased. I told myself it didn't hurt anymore, that I'd moved on. But each time I saw those photos, a small ache returned. Everything changed in year 3. A food blogger with 2 million followers hired me for a collaboration while visiting Austin. She wanted professional photos for her Texas cuisine series. We spent 3 days shooting at 10 different spots, from upscale steakhouses to family-run taco trucks. When she posted the photos, she tagged me in everyone. Within a week, my Instagram gained 20,000 new followers and my website crashed from the surge of traffic. My bookings filled up for 6 months in just 2 days. I raised my rates, twice, and the inquiries still didn't stop. That fall, I brought on 2 more assistants and hired a part-time business manager, Trevor, to handle scheduling and invoicing. I moved into a small office with a proper studio setup. My cramped apartment days were behind me. I upgraded to a 1-bedroom in a modern building, with a gym and a pool. Still, every now and then, I thought about my parents. I often wondered if they ever noticed my growing success, if they had seen my Instagram, or if they ever regretted cutting me off. But I never reached out. The wound had long healed, and I had learned to live with it. By year 4, my career reached new heights. A lifestyle magazine in New York featured my work in an article about rising food photographers. Major brands began approaching me for campaigns. I photographed for a national coffee chain, a frozen food company launching a premium range, and even a celebrity chef opening a restaurant in downtown Austin. That year, my revenue reached $400,000. After covering team costs and expenses, I earned more than Gregory did at his bank job, far more. To celebrate, I bought myself a luxury watch, a sleek silver one I had wanted for months. Each time I checked the time, I remembered Dad calling me irresponsible and Mom's quiet disappointment. That watch became my reminder of how far I'd come without their support. In year 5, I started exploring real estate. Austin's market was tough, but I had saved diligently, living modestly despite my growing income. I wanted something tangible, proof that my hard work had built something real. In February, I found the house, in Westlake Hills, a neighborhood I'd often driven through, imagining life there. The house was modern, with clean lines, floor-to-ceiling windows, a view of the hills, and a backyard perfect for gatherings. It had 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, a chef's kitchen with professional appliances, and a separate studio for editing and small shoots. The price, $2 million. I made an offer the same day, and it was accepted within 12 hours. Standing in the empty living room after closing, I felt surreal. This was mine, achieved not through my parents' help or anyone's approval, but through my vision and persistence. I spent March furnishing it, hiring an interior designer who captured my style, warm minimalism with pops of color, comfortable yet refined. We decorated with mid-century furniture, original art from Austin artists, and a large dining table for 12. The kitchen quickly became my favorite. Marble counters, a massive island, and top-tier appliances. From eating ramen in a small apartment to owning a kitchen chefs would envy. It was a transformation I could hardly believe. When everything was done, I acted on impulse. I posted a photo of the house on Instagram, the living room glowing in golden hour light with the hills visible beyond the windows. The caption was simple, 5 years of dreams and hustle, home. The post went viral. Thousands of likes in hours, hundreds of comments. People congratulated me, asked about the design, wanted to know my story. My followers had seen my journey, from an ambitious solo photographer to a successful business owner, and they celebrated with me. I never expected my father to see it. I had stopped wondering years ago whether my parents followed my life. But 2 days later, my phone buzzed with a text from him. Anne, your mother and I saw your new home. It's beautiful. We'd love to reconnect. It's been too long. Maybe dinner sometime? Bring your investors too. We'd love to meet the people who believed in you. I stared at the message for a long time. Investors. He thought others had funded me or that I couldn't. Have achieved this alone. 5 years of silence. And this was what brought them back. Not pride, not regret, not curiosity, but wealth. And the assumption that someone else had made it possible. Something cold settled inside me. I reread the message, weighing every word. They wanted to reconnect now. Now that success was undeniable. Now that I had something they valued. I thought back to that day outside the convention center, sitting alone in my cap and gown. I remembered all the times I'd wanted to call them, to share wins and struggles, but reminded myself they had made their choice. I typed 3 different replies, deleting each one. Finally, I sent the 4th. Sure, dinner sounds nice. How about Saturday at 7 p.m.? I'll make the reservation. Perfect, Dad replied instantly. Your mother's thrilled. See you then, honey. The word honey stung like acid. I had booked a table at Juniper, one of Austin's top-rated restaurants, the kind that required reservations weeks in advance. Fortunately, I knew the owner. Last fall, I had photographed their seasonal menu launch. One quick call, and I had a prime table reserved. Then I began to plan. If my parents wanted to reconnect, I'd give them exactly that, on my terms. The days before dinner dragged on painfully. I went through my usual schedule, client shoots, meetings, editing sessions, but my thoughts kept circling back to that message. I must have reread it 100 times, each time uncovering new shades of arrogance and entitlement. Bring your investors too. They truly believed I hadn't achieved success on my own. Their confidence in my supposed inadequacy was so strong that they'd invented a story that made more sense to them. I told Zoe about the dinner that Wednesday while we packed up equipment after a cafe. Shoot in South Congress. Wait, she said, frowning. The parents who ghosted you for 5 years now want to play happy family? Pretty much, I said. That's messed up, Anne. Oh, it gets better, I replied. They want to meet my investors. You're what? You built everything yourself. Exactly. Realization flickered in her eyes. Oh, this is going to be interesting, isn't it? I smiled faintly, still deciding just how interesting. That evening, I called Trevor. He'd worked with me for 3 years, knew the business inside out, and came from a finance background before switching to arts management. Perfect for this plan. I need a favor, I said. A weird one? Weird how? I explained. My parents, the silence, the assumptions, and the dinner. Trevor paused. You want to teach them a lesson? I want them to see what they walked away from, who I became without them. What do you need me to do? Come to dinner Saturday. Pretend to be my business partner. Let them believe what they want, and then help me show them the truth. I'm in, he said without hesitation. They deserve it. The next few days, Trevor and I prepared. We reviewed financials, growth charts, and client testimonials. We went over my entire journey, making sure he knew every milestone. He already knew most of it, but we refined the story until it was seamless. I also reached out to Jordan, Juniper's owner and a good friend from past collaborations. Over coffee that Thursday, I said, I need the private dining room on Saturday, and your discretion. Jordan leaned in. This sounds juicy. What's going on? I gave her the short version. Her expression hardened. Your parents sound awful. The room's yours. Anything else? I'll confirm Saturday morning, still finalizing details. Saturday came with perfect spring weather. I spent the morning at the spa, hair, nails, everything, preparing like I was heading into battle. In a way, I was. I dressed with precision, a tailored navy blazer, silk blouse, fitted pants, and the new designer heels I'd recently splurged on. The luxury watch on my wrist caught the light. I looked composed, accomplished, exactly the image I wanted them to see. Trevor met me at Juniper at 6:30, sharp in a charcoal suit, portfolio in hand, the perfect business partner. Ready? He asked. Not even close, I admitted. But let's do it anyway. Inside, Jordan greeted us warmly, her expression soft with understanding. She guided us to the private dining room, an elegant space with a single long table, soft lighting, and windows framing the downtown skyline. I've set up everything you requested, she said quietly. My staff knows to stay discreet. Just give the signal when you're ready. Thank you, I said sincerely. She squeezed my hand. Give them hell, Anne. Trevor and I sat down. He spread out a few documents from his portfolio across the table, making it look like a serious business meeting had already begun. The event was about to start. At exactly 7 p.m., the hostess guided my parents into the private dining room. I rose to greet them, my heartbeat echoing in my chest. 5 years had changed them, adding gray to my father's hair and deeper lines to my mother's face. They looked older, somehow smaller than I remembered. Mom's expression brightened into a wide smile, the kind she usually saved for her church circle or book club friends. Anne, "Oh my goodness, sweetheart, look at you," she said, moving in for a hug. I let her embrace me, though my body remained tense. She still smelled like her favorite lavender lotion. That familiar scent made my throat tighten. Dad shook my hand, but quickly pulled me into an awkward hug, too. "You look wonderful, honey." "So professional." "Thank you," I replied, keeping my tone even. "This is Trevor." "My business partner." Trevor stood, offering a warm, genuine smile as he shook their hands, already slipping into his role effortlessly. "Business partner," Dad repeated, sharing a knowing look with Mom. "So you did bring your investor?" "Actually," Trevor said smoothly, "I joined the company 3 years ago. By then, Anne had already laid the groundwork. I just helped manage operations." We sat down as a server appeared with menus and water. My parents scanned the elegant room with subtle but obvious appraisal, mentally calculating the cost of everything. "This is quite a place," Dad said. "Very impressive." "The owner's a friend," I said. "I've done several photo shoots for her restaurant." Mom's hand went to her chest. "Oh, you're still doing photography? I thought maybe you'd moved into something a little more stable by now." The words lingered in the air. Trevor's brow lifted slightly, but he stayed quiet, letting me respond. "Photography is my business," I said evenly. "It's what built everything you saw in that Instagram post." Of course, Dad said quickly, waving it off. "We just thought with your business degree, you might have expanded into other ventures. Diversified." "The business is quite diversified," Trevor added. "We manage commercial photography, brand campaigns, social media content, and licensing deals. It's a full-service creative agency now." He exaggerated a bit, but I appreciated his support. My parents nodded, clearly impressed by the professional jargon. The server returned to take our orders. Both Mom and Dad chose the most expensive entrees and ordered a bottle of wine that cost more than I used to spend on groceries in a month. When the server left, Mom reached across the table and patted my hand. "We've missed you so much, sweetheart. It's been far too long." I glanced at her manicured hand and the diamond ring Dad had given her on their 30th anniversary. 5 years, and she still wore it proudly. "You could have called," I said quietly. "Any time in the last 5 years, you could have picked up the phone." Silence settled over the table. Dad cleared his throat. "We thought we were doing the right thing," he said. "Giving you space to figure things out. We didn't want to enable irresponsibility." "Irresponsibility?" I repeated. "You have to understand our perspective," Mom added gently. "We just wanted you to have stability, a real career. We were protecting you from making a big mistake." I felt Trevor shift beside me, his quiet anger obvious. I placed my hand flat on the table in a small signal for him to stay calm. "A mistake?" I said, keeping my tone controlled. "Is that what you call it now?" Dad leaned back, adopting that familiar authoritative pose from my childhood. "Anne, we're not here to dwell on the past. We're here to reconnect, to move forward. You've done well for yourself, and we're proud of you." Proud. The word felt bitter on my tongue. "You're proud now." "We always wanted what's best for you," Mom said, her voice taking on that wounded tone she used when she felt misunderstood. "Everything we did came from love." The wine arrived then, saving us from the tension. Dad played the part of the refined host, tasting it theatrically before pouring for everyone. "To family," he said, raising his glass, "and to new beginnings." I didn't raise mine. Trevor followed my lead, leaving his untouched. The toast hovered awkwardly before Dad lowered his glass, his smile faltering. "Anne, come on," he said softly. "We're trying here. Are you?" I asked. "Because from where I'm sitting, it seems like you only decided to try after you saw I had money." Mom's face flushed. "That's not fair. We saw your beautiful home and realized how much time we'd lost. It made us reflect on what we've been missing." "What you'd been missing?" I repeated calmly. Not who, what. Honey, you're being dramatic, Dad said, his patience slipping. I recognized that familiar sharpness in his voice. We made a parenting decision 5 years ago that you disagreed with. That's all. You've proven yourself now, and we're here to celebrate. Can't we just enjoy this dinner? Trevor finally spoke, his tone measured. I'm curious. When Anne was building her business from scratch, working 16-hour days, living in a studio apartment, surviving on instant noodles to buy camera gear, where were you then? Dad stiffened. That's none of your business. This is a family matter. I disagree, Trevor replied evenly. Anne is my business partner and my friend. Her success concerns me. And I'm wondering what kind of parents walk away when their daughter needs them most, then reappear years later asking to meet her investors. We didn't abandon her, Mom snapped. We gave her space to grow and take responsibility for her choices. Is that what you call ignoring her calls? Trevor asked. Missing every holiday, birthday, and milestone? She told me she reached out countless times that first year. You chose not to respond. I hadn't told Trevor those details, but he knew me well enough to guess, and he was right. Mom's face turned pale. We thought it best to keep distance until you were ready to be realistic about your future. I was realistic, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. I had a business plan, clients, and income from the start. You just couldn't accept that my path didn't match your expectations. Dad set his wine glass down a bit too hard. You were 22 talking about becoming a photographer. Do you know how many people fail in creative careers? We were protecting you from wasting your life. Instead, you wasted 5 years of our relationship, I said quietly. 5 years I can't get back. Graduations, achievements, struggles, growth. You missed it all, by choice. The appetizers arrived, momentarily easing the tension. The server, sensing the mood, left quickly. None of us touched our food. Mom dabbed her eyes with her napkin. We thought we were doing the right thing, she whispered. You have to forgive us for that. Do I asked. Do I have to forgive you for missing my graduation? For never asking how I was when things were hard? For disappearing so completely that I learned about Gregory's engagement on Facebook? Gregory's engaged? Mom blurted before she could stop herself, revealing she had kept it from me for months. Yes, I said coldly, and you knew. You just didn't think I deserved to. I wasn't family anymore, remember? Dad pushed his plate aside. This isn't productive. We came here to reconnect, not to dwell on the past. The past is why we're here, I replied. You want to reconnect now because you think I have investors? Because I have money? Because my success finally fits your version of acceptable? You couldn't be proud of me when I was struggling. You only are now that I've made it. That's not true, Mom said weakly. Isn't it? I asked. When was the last time you looked at my Instagram before seeing that house photo? When did you last Google my business name to check in? She said nothing, confirming my point. Trevor cleared his throat. For what it's worth, Anne has built something remarkable. Her revenue last year was nearly $500,000. She employs 5 people, works with national brands, and has been featured in major publications, all without outside investment or family support. I watched my parents absorb this. Dad's face flickered through surprise, calculation, and finally, something that looked like greed. $500,000, he repeated. That's impressive. With that kind of income, you should consider serious financial planning, tax strategies, investments. I could introduce you to some people, and there it was. The real reason for this dinner, not reconciliation, but opportunity. I already have a financial advisor, I said coolly, and an accountant. I'm covered. Of course, Dad said quickly. I just meant families should support each other. Maybe there are ways we can help one another now that we're reconnecting. Help each other? I repeated. Like you helped me 5 years ago? Mom was crying now, though her tears seemed deliberate, almost practiced. Why are you being so harsh? We made mistakes, yes, but we're here now trying to make things right. Can't you see that? What I see, I said carefully, are 2 people who cut off their daughter for following her dreams, ignored her for 5 years, and now want back in because there's money involved. What I see is opportunism disguised as concern. The main course arrived, beautifully plated, expensive, untouched. We ate in silence, tension hanging heavy. I could feel their discomfort, their slow realization that this evening wasn't unfolding as planned. They had expected a grateful daughter, eager to forgive, maybe even to seek advice. But they hadn't expected questions. They hadn't expected accountability. Dad tried again. Anne, I understand you're angry. That's fair, but holding on to anger isn't healthy. Your mother and I are extending an olive branch. We want to be part of your life again. Why? I asked bluntly. Give me one reason that isn't about money. They exchanged glances, and in that brief silence, I saw everything I needed to see. They couldn't think of one. Not a single reason for wanting me back that wasn't tied to my financial success. Trevor shook his head slowly, clear disappointment on his face. Unbelievable. We raised you, Mom said at last. We gave you life, paid for your education, supported you for 22 years. Doesn't that mean anything? It did 5 years ago, I replied. It mattered when I needed you, but you made it clear that your love came with conditions. You'd only support me if I lived the life you wanted. The moment I chose my own path, I stopped existing to you. That's an exaggeration, Dad said. Is it? I shot back. You skipped my graduation. Didn't call on my birthday for 5 years. You sent a text saying I was on my own. And you meant it. Until you saw that house. The private dining room suddenly felt smaller, the air thick with tension. My parents tried to act calm, pretending this was a normal reunion. Dad softened his voice. Look, maybe we handled things poorly. Maybe we should have stayed in touch even when we disagreed. But we're here now, and that should count for something. It does, I said evenly. It proves you're exactly who I thought you were. Mom set her fork down sharply. You know what? Maybe we made mistakes, but you're not blameless either. You could have understood our concerns, chosen a more stable career, kept photography as a hobby. But no, you had to be stubborn, had to prove a point. So don't act like this is all our fault. I felt Trevor tense beside me, ready to speak, but I raised a hand. This was the moment I'd been waiting for. The truth. My fault? I said quietly. For dreaming too big? For wanting to build something meaningful instead of settling for someone else's definition of success? For not being Gregory with his safe job and predictable life? Gregory has a good life, Dad said defensively. He's engaged, buying a house, saving for retirement. He's doing everything right. And I'm doing everything wrong, I said. Even though I make more than he does, own a $2 million house and built a thriving business from scratch. Even now, with all the proof in front of you, you still can't accept it, can you? You still wish I'd chosen differently. The silence said everything. We just want you to be happy, Mom murmured. No, I corrected softly. You want me to be what makes you happy. There's a difference. Trevor leaned forward, his tone firm. I've worked with Anne for 3 years. I've seen her build something from nothing, her talent, her work ethic. She's one of the most successful young entrepreneurs I know. And you two nearly destroyed that. Destroyed her? Dad scoffed. She's clearly fine. She's fine because she's incredibly resilient, Trevor replied. But those first 2 years, she cried herself to sleep more nights than she'd admit. She worked herself to exhaustion, trying to prove she wasn't the failure you made her believe she was. She shut people out because she was terrified of being abandoned again. My cheeks burned. Trevor was revealing things I'd told him in confidence during late-night editing sessions. But I didn't stop him. My parents needed to hear it. We didn't know, Mom whispered. You didn't want to know, I said coldly. That's the difference. You chose not to be there. And now you want to walk back into my life and pretend the last 5 years didn't happen. It doesn't work like that. Dad's face hardened. So what? You invited us just to throw our mistakes in our faces? To humiliate us? That's petty, Anne. Petty? I repeated, feeling something inside me break open. You think this is petty? You abandoned me when I was most vulnerable. You missed my graduation, my first big client, the day I signed my first office lease. You weren't there when I broke my wrist shooting in the rain and still finished the job because I couldn't afford to quit. You missed when my business hit 6 figures, when I bought my first car, when a magazine called me one of Austin's most promising young photographers. You missed everything, Dad, and you did it on purpose, to teach me a lesson. My voice rose, but I forced myself to breathe, to steady it. So yes, I said finally. I invited you here tonight, but not to reconnect, not to forgive and forget, and definitely not to play happy family. I invited you both here because you wanted to meet my investors. I figured you should meet the only investor who ever truly believed in me. I stood up, the chair legs scraping the floor. Trevor followed my lead, unsure of my direction, but standing with me regardless. The only investor in my business, I said, my tone steady and clear, is me. Every single dollar that built what I have came from my own hands. I saved $4,000 from freelance work before I even graduated. For 2 years, I lived on nearly nothing just to afford the right equipment. I worked 16-hour days, 7 days a week. I studied business management, marketing, and financial planning on my own. I made countless mistakes and learned from every one of them. I built everything alone because you left me no other option. Mom was crying again, but this time her tears seemed genuine, raw, and shocked. I'm my own investor, I continued. I took a risk on myself when no one else would, and I succeeded. That house you saw on Instagram? I bought it with my own money. This watch, I raised my wrist, was paid for with the profits from last year's biggest campaign. Everything I own, everything I am, came from hard work. Not a cent or a word of support from either of you. Anne, Dad started, but I wasn't done. You texted me asking to bring my investors because you couldn't imagine I did all this on my own. You needed to believe there was someone else, some outside factor behind my success. Because the alternative, that I succeeded despite you, was too much for your pride to accept. I walked to the door of the private dining room and opened it. Jordan stood nearby, just as we had planned, and nodded at me. So here's what's going to happen, I said, turning back to them. You'll finish your expensive dinner, which, by the way, I'm paying for even though you don't deserve it. You'll think about what I said, and then you'll leave. And unless you're ready to offer me a genuine apology that acknowledges exactly what you did and why it was wrong, you won't contact me again. You can't just shut us out like this, Dad said. His face flushed. We're your parents. You stopped being my parents when you told me I was on my own, I replied. You don't get to reclaim that title now that it's convenient. Trevor stepped beside me, showing we were united. I think it's time we go, Anne, he said. Wait, Mom pleaded, standing too. Please don't leave like this. We can talk. We can fix this. There's nothing to fix, I said. You made your choice 5 years ago. You chose your pride and your narrow view of success over your daughter. You chose conditional love instead of unconditional support. And now you'll have to live with the consequence, that you missed the chance to see me become someone worth knowing. I turned to leave, then paused. Oh, and one more thing, I said. That dinner text, you said Mom was excited to reconnect. But 5 years ago, when I called Dad asking why you both missed my graduation, you said Mom was sick. That was a lie then, and it's a lie now. Mom was never sick. You just couldn't admit that you were punishing me for not becoming who you wanted me to be. Mom's face broke completely. How did you— I'm not stupid, I said quietly. I never was. You just treated me like I was, because my dreams didn't align with yours. Trevor and I walked out of the private dining room together. Outside, the restaurant buzzed with Saturday night energy, families and couples laughing, completely unaware of the storm that had just passed. Jordan spotted us from across the room and came over. You okay? She asked softly. I will be, I said, and for the first time I meant it. She handed me a small envelope. No charge for tonight. Consider it my contribution to justice. I tried to argue, but she waved me off. After everything you told me about them, letting them eat for free at my restaurant would have been unbearable. At least this way, you got something out of the whole ordeal. I hugged her, thankful for friends who show up when it matters most. Trevor and I stepped out into the warm Austin night, the city buzzing with life. Music floated from nearby bars, laughter echoed from patios, that familiar energy that made Austin feel like home. That was intense, Trevor said. You okay? I'm not sure yet, I admitted. Ask me tomorrow. He nodded knowingly. For what it's worth, you were amazing in there. They deserved every word, did they though? Was I too harsh? And they ghosted you for 5 years. 5 years. And they only came back when they saw money. Yeah, they deserved it. Maybe even worse. We walked in silence for a while. My phone buzzed in my purse, but I ignored it. You're not going to check that? Trevor asked. If it's them, I don't want to. If it's not, it can wait. Still, curiosity got the best of me a few minutes later. I took out my phone and saw 3 new messages. The first was from Dad. You embarrassed us in front of your business partner. That was completely uncalled for. We came in good faith and you attacked us. We deserved better. The second was from Mom. I'm sorry we hurt you. I didn't realize it was that deep, but what you said tonight was cruel. We're your parents. We'll always love you, even when you're being difficult. The third was from a number I didn't recognize. Hi, Anne. This is Gregory. Aunt Helen called my mom crying about dinner tonight. I don't know the full story, but I always thought the way they treated you was wrong. If you ever want to talk, I'm here. Also, congrats on your success. I've followed your Instagram for years. Your work is incredible. I showed Trevor the texts. His face darkened with each one. Your dad thinks he deserved better? Trevor said. And your mom called you difficult? They learned nothing. Did you expect them to? No, I said. But I hoped. For my sake, I hoped. Gregory's message was the only one I replied to. Thanks, Greg. I appreciate it. Let's grab coffee sometime. The other two I deleted without responding. Trevor drove me home, my beautiful, hard-earned home that I'd built without them. We sat in the car for a while, neither of us ready to say goodbye. What now? He asked. Now I move forward, I said. Just like I have for the past 5 years. They made their choice. I made mine. The difference is I can live with mine. You know they'll try again, right? People like that don't give up easily. Maybe, I said. But I'm not the scared 22-year-old they remember. I know my worth now, with or without their approval. Trevor smiled. Damn right you do. I stepped out, my heels clicking on the stone walkway. Inside, the house was dark and quiet, waiting for me. I turned on the lights and looked around. Every inch of it was mine. Designed, furnished, earned. Then my phone buzzed again. Another message from Dad. You owe us an apology for tonight. When you're ready to act like an adult, we can talk again. I blocked his number. Then I blocked Mom's too. The act felt final, frightening and freeing all at once. For 5 years, I had secretly hoped they'd realize their mistake, come back, and be proud of me. Tonight ended that hope for good. But something stronger replaced it, certainty. I didn't need their approval. I never had. The house felt peaceful as I walked through it, remembering everything that had brought me here. The tiny studio apartment where I edited photos on a used laptop. The first office I ever rented. The endless shoots, the late nights, the doubts, the small wins. Every bit of it was mine. I poured a glass of wine and sat on the patio, watching the Austin skyline glow in the distance. A city full of dreamers and builders. This was my home, my life, my identity. My phone buzzed again. Gregory. Just so you know, I told my parents what Aunt Helen said. They're on your side. My mom said, if your parents can't see how amazing you are, that's their loss. Family dinner at our place next Sunday if you'd like to come. No pressure, I smiled. Maybe some family was worth reconnecting with, I'd like that. Thank you. The night air was perfect. That rare Texas balance between warm and cool. I thought about the girl I'd been 5 years ago, standing outside that convention center alone. I wished I could tell her it would be okay, that the pain would turn into strength, that losing their approval would give her freedom. But maybe she wouldn't have believed me. Maybe she needed to find her own way, just as I had. My business phone rang. It was after 10 p.m. on a Saturday, unusual timing for a work call, but I picked up anyway. Anne, this is Victoria Chambers from Lifestyle Magazine. I know it's late, but I just received your submission photos for the Texas feature and had to call. They're stunning. We'd like to offer you a full 6-page spread and a profile on your journey in building your business. Would you be interested? I looked out at the skyline, the city that had given me everything when my family had given me nothing. Yes, I said quietly. I'd be very interested. We spoke for about 20 minutes, going over the details, the timeline, and the story they wanted to tell. A profile in a major national magazine, the kind of recognition that could elevate my business to a new level. When the call ended, I allowed myself a moment to feel the weight of the evening, the confrontation with my parents, the ache of their selfishness, and the quiet satisfaction of proving them wrong. They had wanted to reconnect only to benefit from my success, but instead, they had been forced to face what their rejection had cost them, a relationship with someone who had achieved everything they said was impossible. I raised my wine glass to the night sky. To dreaming too big, I said softly, and to proving them all wrong. The week after that dinner, I threw myself into work with fresh energy. The confrontation had left me emotionally raw, but also strangely motivated, as if I'd finally closed a door that had been left open too. Long Victoria's call about the magazine profile gave me something real to focus on, something other than my parents' messages. I hadn't heard from them since I blocked their numbers, but Gregory still sent occasional updates. Apparently, they were telling everyone that I had been disrespectful and ungrateful, that they had tried to reconnect and I had rejected them. It was predictable. They were the victims now, wronged by their ungrateful daughter. "Your Aunt Helen says you've changed," Gregory texted on Tuesday. "That success went to your head. Just thought you should know." I appreciated the warning but refused to let it bother me. They could twist the story however they needed. The people who mattered knew the truth. The magazine interview was scheduled for Thursday afternoon. Victoria arrived at my office with a photographer and recording device, ready to capture my story. She was in her 40s, sharply dressed with the kind of focus that came from passion for her work. "I've been following your career for about a year," she said as we sat down. "Your style is distinctive and your growth has been remarkable. But what caught my attention was your story. Self-funded, no investors, built from scratch in a competitive market. That's rare." "It didn't feel rare at the time," I said with a small smile. "It just felt like my only option." "Tell me about the beginning," she said. "What made you decide to turn photography into a business?" I told her about my journey, how I realized during college that photography was more than a hobby, and how I decided to launch my business right after graduation. I chose my words carefully. I didn't want to sound bitter, but I wasn't going to hide the challenges either. "My family didn't support the decision," I said. "They wanted me to take a traditional corporate route. When I refused, they withdrew their support entirely." "How completely?" she asked. I paused, debating how much to reveal. But this was the point, to tell the real story. They didn't attend my graduation. They told me I was on my own, and they meant it. "We didn't speak for 5 years," her eyes widened. 5 years? That's a long time. It was, I agreed. But it forced me to depend entirely on myself. I couldn't rely on family connections, loans, or safety nets. It was either make it work or fail completely. Some might say that kind of pressure could break a person. It almost did, I admitted. But it also made me sharper, more resilient. I learned to make quick decisions, trust my instincts, and push through fear and doubt. I'm not sure I'd have developed those skills if my path had been easier. We talked for 2 hours about my creative process, business strategy, and plans for growth. She asked about the challenges of being a young woman in a competitive field, about imposter syndrome, and moments I nearly gave up. "What kept you going during the hardest times?" she asked. I thought of those first 2 years, the nights I cried myself to sleep in my small apartment, wondering if my parents had been right. "Spite," I said with a laugh. At first, I just wanted to prove them wrong. But somewhere along the way, it stopped being about them and became about me. I realized I was building something I was truly proud of, something meaningful whether or not anyone noticed. "And your family?" she asked. "Have you reconnected?" "They reached out recently," I said carefully. But it quickly became clear they were more interested in my success than in rebuilding a relationship. "Some wounds don't heal just because time passes," Victoria nodded knowingly. "That must be hard." "It was," I said. "But I've made peace with it. You can't force people to see your worth, and you can't make them regret choices they're not sorry for. All you can do is keep moving forward and build a life that fulfills you, with or without their approval." The photographer captured a few shots of me in my office, reviewing images on my computer, surrounded by the world I had built for myself. He photographed the workspace I had built, the team in the background, the energy of a growing business. These images would accompany the profile, giving readers a glimpse of what I had created. After they left, I sat alone in my office, emotionally exhausted, yet quietly content. The interview had made me express thoughts I had never fully confronted. It pushed me to claim my story in a way I hadn't before. Zoe appeared at the door. "How did it go?" "Good, I think." "Draining, but good. Dinner?" "You look like you could use a break." We went to a small taco place near the office. Nothing fancy, just comforting food and easy conversation. Over the last 3 years, Zoe had become more than just an assistant. She was a true friend, someone who had witnessed the middle part of my journey. "Can I ask you something?" she said between bites of her fish taco. "The dinner with your parents last week, do you regret how it turned out?" I thought about it for a moment. No, I regret that it had to happen at all, that they couldn't just be honest. But I don't regret confronting them. They needed to hear it, even if they didn't accept it. Have they reached out since? Not directly. I blocked their numbers. But my cousin says they're playing the victims to everyone else. Of course they are, Zoe sighed. Because owning their mistakes would mean real self-reflection. Exactly. Well, I think you handled it perfectly. They came expecting gratitude and left with a wake-up call. That's poetic justice, I smiled. Trevor called it karma. He's not wrong. We finished dinner and went our separate ways. That night, I spent hours editing photos from a recent shoot, losing myself in the same work that had saved me 5 years ago, the work that still grounded me today. Around 10 p.m., the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone, and the surprise made me uneasy. Checking the security camera on my phone, my stomach dropped. Mom was at the door, alone, looking small and worn under the porch light. I considered pretending I wasn't home, but curiosity won. I opened the door without inviting her in. "Hi, honey," she said softly. "Can we talk? How did you get past the gate?" "I told the guard I was your mother and that it was an emergency. Please, Anne, just 5 minutes." Against my better judgment, I stepped aside. She entered, quietly taking in the room, seeing for the first time what she'd only glimpsed on Instagram. "Your home is beautiful," she said. "Thank you." "You have 5 minutes." My tone made her flinch, but she continued. "I wanted to apologize and for everything. For how we handled things 5 years ago. For missing your graduation. For not being there. Your father doesn't agree with me coming, but I had to tell you I'm sorry." "Okay," I said, folding my arms. "You've told me. Is that all? I know we hurt you. I know we can't undo it, but we're still your parents. That has to count for something. Why does it have to? Because of biology? Because you raised me for 18 years? That doesn't earn forgiveness for the next 5. Tears filled her eyes. "I miss my daughter. I miss you. Can't we move past this?" "What changed?" I asked. "Between Saturday and now, what actually changed? Are you sorry you cut me off or that it backfired?" She sat down uninvited, her shoulders heavy. She looked older, fragile. A small part of me felt pity, but mostly I felt numb. "I've been thinking about what you said at dinner," she began. "About how we treated you. The lies, the distance. Your father insists you were being dramatic, but I can't stop thinking about it. About you being alone at your graduation. About all the times I wanted to call but didn't because your father said we needed to stay firm." "You could have called anyway," I said. "You weren't a child. You had a phone and a choice. I know. And that's on me. I let him make decisions for both of us. That was wrong. I should have been stronger, fought for us." I sat across from her, keeping my distance. "Why didn't you?" She hesitated, hands twisting in her lap. "Because part of me agreed with him. Not about cutting you off completely, but about worrying. You were so young, so idealistic. Photography seemed unstable. We saw friends' kids chase creative dreams and end up broke, back home at 30. We didn't want that for you. So you chose no relationship over a risky one. We thought tough love would help. That pulling back would make you choose something safer. We never imagined you'd actually make it. That's the problem, Mom. You never believed in me. When I proved you wrong, instead of being proud, you searched for excuses. Investors, partners, anything but my own effort." She wiped her eyes. "You're right. We didn't believe in you, and we should have. We should have trusted that we raised someone capable of making her own choices. But you didn't. You trusted fear more than me." "I know, and I'm sorry." "I truly am, Anne." Her apology sounded genuine, more real than anything she had said at the restaurant. But after 5 years, I had learned that sorry didn't always fix things. "What do you want from me?" I asked. "Forgiveness. A chance to make things right. And what would that even look like?" "I don't know," she admitted quietly. "I just know I want my daughter back. I want to understand who you've become. I want to be part of your life again." "I'm not the daughter you remember," I said. "The girl who left your house 5 years ago doesn't exist anymore. She had to disappear so I could survive. The Anne you knew was terrified of disappointing you, of never being enough. She kept herself small to meet your expectations. I can't be her again." "I don't want you to be her," Mom said quickly. "I want to know who you are now." "Do you really?" I asked. "Because the person I am now built a business you didn't believe in. She chose risk over safety, made bold choices, refused to fit into neat little boxes. If you couldn't accept that version of me back then, why would you now?" "Because I was wrong," she said simply. "Wrong about what you needed. Wrong about what would make you happy. Wrong about what you were capable of. I'm trying to own that. I studied her face, searching for signs of manipulation or performance. But she looked sincerely upset, truly remorseful. It would have been easier if she had stayed defensive. "Where's Dad in all this?" I asked. "Why isn't he here?" She looked down at her hands. "He's still angry about what happened at dinner. He thinks you ambushed us, set us up for embarrassment. He won't apologize because he believes he did nothing wrong. He says we made a reasonable parenting decision and that you're overreacting." "Missing my graduation is overreacting?" "I know," she said, her voice breaking. "I told him that. We've been arguing about it all week. He keeps saying we're the victims here, that you're being ungrateful and disrespectful. But I can't stop thinking about what you said about me being sick that day." "You were right. I wasn't sick. We just didn't want to go, and we lied. That's unforgivable. At least she could admit that much. So what now?" I asked. "You apologize, and we're supposed to go back to being mother and daughter like nothing happened?" "No," she said softly. "I know it's not that simple, but maybe we could start small. Coffee, lunch. Let me get to know you again. Then you can decide if you want me in your life. As for your dad, he'll come around eventually. Or he won't, but I'm not letting his pride make me lose my daughter again." Her words sounded good, but I'd learned not to trust words without action. "I need time to think," I said. "I can't decide this right now." "I understand," she replied. "Take all the time you need." She stood, picking up her purse. "Can I ask you something before I go?" "What?" "That house photo you posted on Instagram. Was it deliberate? Did you post it knowing we'd see it?" I thought about lying, but what was the point? "Yes, I knew you followed my account even though you never liked or commented. I wanted you to see what I'd built, what you'd missed." She nodded slowly. "I deserve that, we both do. And for what it's worth, I've seen every photo you've posted over the past 5 years. I've watched you grow, succeed, and I've been proud even when I had no right to be. I just wasn't brave enough to tell you." She walked to the door, then turned back. "Your father asked me to find out about your investors, their names, contacts. He's already thinking about business opportunities, about using your connections. Why are you telling me this?" "Because you deserve to know who he is, and to know that I'm not here for that. I'm here for you." After she left, I stood in the living room for a long time, replaying everything. Part of me wanted to believe her, to think maybe she'd changed. But I'd been let down too many times to trust easily. I called Trevor. My mom just showed up at my house. "What? How did she even get in?" "She lied to the gate guard about an emergency." I filled him in on the conversation. "Do you believe her?" he asked when I finished. "I'm not sure." She sounded sincere. But sounding sincere and being sincere are two different things. "What does your gut tell you?" I paused for a moment. "My gut says she regrets that we've grown apart, but not necessarily for the right reasons. She's upset about how things ended for her, not really about what she did to me." "That's a big difference." "Yeah, so what are you going to do?" "Nothing yet. I told her I need time to think, and I do. I can't decide anything while I'm still angry and hurt." "Fair enough. Just don't let her guilt you into forgiving her. You don't owe her that just because she showed up." After the call, I made myself a cup of tea and sat on the back patio again, staring at the same view that started all this. If I hadn't posted that photo, my parents wouldn't have reached out. I would have kept building my life quietly without them. Maybe that would have been easier. But maybe this confrontation was necessary. Maybe I needed to finally face them and say everything I'd been holding in for 5 years. Maybe I had to learn that even with an apology, some relationships can never return to what they once were. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. I almost ignored it, thinking it was Dad using a different phone, but curiosity got the better of me. "Hi, Anne. This is Patricia from Austin Business Journal. We heard about your upcoming lifestyle magazine feature and would love to do a local piece on your business growth. Would you be open to an interview?" Despite my exhaustion, I smiled. This, my work, my progress, my success, was what really mattered. Everything else was just noise. I replied, "Yes, I'd love to. Let's schedule something for next week." The business I built was real, solid, and undeniable. It existed entirely separate from my parents' approval or rejection. That was the victory that mattered more than any apology. The next morning, I woke to 3 missed calls from Dad's office and 2 voicemails. I listened over coffee. The first was polite. asking me to call back to discuss family matters. The second was harsher, accusing me of turning Mom against him and manipulating the situation. I deleted both messages and blocked the office number. 3 weeks later, the Lifestyle magazine feature was published. 6 glossy pages of my work. My team, my story. The headline read, "Building Dreams, How Anne Created a Photography Empire from Scratch." It didn't shy away from my family situation either. Victoria had written, "Anne's story stands out not only for her artistic vision, but for her resilience in the face of complete familial rejection. When her parents withdrew support after graduation, threatening isolation if she pursued her passion, she chose passion. The result? A thriving business grossing nearly $500,000 last year, employing 5 people, and partnering with national brands. Her journey proves that belief in yourself matters more than seeking approval." The article went viral within hours. My Instagram gained 50,000 followers in 2 days. My inbox overflowed with interview requests, speaking offers, and new clients. The Austin Business Journal feature came out a week later, fueling even more attention. My phone rang constantly. Zoe handled most of it. But I took some calls myself. A podcast interview about entrepreneurship, a speaking slot at a Women in Business conference, and even a collaboration offer from a major camera brand. The attention was intense, but also deeply validating. My story connected with people. I received hundreds of messages from strangers sharing their own struggles, choosing authenticity over approval. Without planning to, I had become a symbol of something bigger than myself. Gregory texted me. "Saw the article? It's everywhere. Aunt Helen's furious, says you made them sound awful. Mom told her to stop embarrassing herself." I appreciated the update but felt strangely detached. My parents now seemed like characters in a story. Not participants in my life. Mom called several times from different numbers before I finally picked up. "Anne, we need to talk about this article," she said, her voice tight with anger. "What about it?" "You made us look terrible. Everyone's seen it, people from church, Dad's colleagues. It's humiliating." "It's the truth," I said evenly. "I didn't make you look like anything. I only told the reporter what actually happened. You could have been more discreet. Maybe just said we had a disagreement instead of revealing every little detail. Why would I protect you when you didn't protect me when I needed it the most?" There was a pause on the other end. I could hear her breathing, heavy and unsteady. "Your father wants to sue the magazine for defamation," she finally said. "He's already spoken to a lawyer." I laughed. An actual laugh. "Sue them for what?" "For telling the truth." "Good luck with that. Every line in that article is accurate, and you know it. Please," she pleaded. "Can't you ask them to take it down or issue a retraction? It's ruining our reputation in the community." "No," I replied calmly. "Even if I wanted to, I couldn't. It's already published. A retraction would only draw more attention and make it worse for you. So you're just going to let us be dragged through the mud like this?" "You dragged yourselves through it 5 years ago when you made your choices," I said. "I only told the truth. If you don't like how it looks in print, maybe that says something about your actions." "I came to your house," she said, her voice breaking. I apologized. "I tried to make things right, and you repaid me by humiliating us in a national magazine." "The article was written before you came," I reminded her. "The interview happened long before your apology. And honestly, Mom, nothing in that piece was worse than what you did to me. If anything, Victoria was generous in how she portrayed it." "Your father is furious," she continued. "He says he never wants to speak to you again after this betrayal." "Then I guess we're even," I said, ending the call. I blocked the number immediately. The media storm lasted about a week before things finally began to settle, though the effects on my business were undeniable and permanent. Within a month of the article's release, I was fully booked for the next year. I had to hire 2 more assistants just to handle the overwhelming demand. My rates tripled, and clients still waited eagerly to work with me. Soon, I moved the business into a larger office, a renovated warehouse in East Austin with tall ceilings, sunlight streaming through massive windows, and space for a full production studio. It was everything I'd dreamed of back when I was editing photos from my tiny apartment on a secondhand laptop. The grand opening was a celebration with my team, local partners, and close friends. No family members were invited, except Gregory and his fiancée. I didn't need my parents' approval anymore. The space itself was proof of what I'd built. Jordan from Juniper catered the event with her signature dishes. Trevor delivered a heartfelt speech about resilience and self-belief that moved several guests to tears. Zoe presented a gift from the team, a framed print from my first major client project, the hotel campaign that launched my career. "To remind you how far you've come," she said, hugging me tightly. I hung it in my private office, a reminder that every journey begins small and uncertain. Gregory arrived with Sophie, his warm, genuine fiancée, who immediately made me feel welcome. "The rest of the family sends their congratulations," he said. "Well, most of them. Aunt Helen and Uncle Roger are still defending Mom and Dad." "Let them," I replied. "I'm done caring what they think." As the party wound down and the guests drifted out, I stood in the middle of my new office, taking it all in. 5 years ago, I had been alone at my graduation, certain I had lost everything that mattered. Now I was surrounded by people who chose to be in my life, people who supported me without conditions or expectations. My parents had once wanted me to bring my investors to dinner that night to meet those who believed in me when they hadn't. Looking around the room, at my team, friends, and partners, I realized I had brought my investors. Every person there had invested something meaningful in me, their time, trust, belief, and energy. They were the ones who helped me build this, who showed up when it mattered. And my parents missed it all, by their own choice. 3 months after the magazine article went public, I received a letter in the mail. Not a text or email, an actual handwritten note on my parents' formal stationery. It was from Dad. His careful handwriting filled 2 pages, each word deliberate, rewritten multiple times to achieve perfection. He didn't apologize outright, but admitted they might have handled things poorly, that maybe their expectations had been too high, their approach too rigid. He wrote that they were proud of my success and hoped that, in time, I might consider reconnecting once emotions had cooled and reason returned. Yet the letter lacked any real acknowledgement of the pain they had caused, no sincere responsibility, no genuine apology. It was the kind of message that sought reconciliation without accountability, forgiveness without admitting fault. I read it twice, searching for even a trace of remorse or self-awareness. Finding none, I placed it in a drawer and chose not to reply. I had built a life without them, a life defined by independence and success achieved on my own terms. And while part of me would always grieve for the parents, I wished I'd had the ones who would have believed in me from the beginning. I no longer sought their approval or waited for them to change. My business continued to grow, exceeding even my most ambitious expectations. My partnerships became more prestigious, my clients more influential. Invitations to speak at conferences and universities across the country poured in. I shared my story with young entrepreneurs and creatives who needed to hear that success without family support wasn't just possible, it could make them stronger. At one such event in Houston, a young woman approached me afterward, tears streaming down her face. "My parents think I'm wasting their money on a fashion design degree," she said, voice trembling. "They want me to quit and get a real job. Your story gave me hope, that I'm not crazy for believing in myself." "You can make it work," I told her, holding her hands. "It won't be easy. You'll have moments of doubt when their words echo in your mind. But if you truly want this, if you're willing to push past the fear and work harder than you thought possible, you can build something real and meaningful." She hugged me tightly, thanking me repeatedly. In that moment, standing in that university auditorium, I understood exactly why my story had resonated with so many. There were countless others choosing their dreams over their family's approval, feeling alone, afraid, and uncertain. If my journey could help even one person keep believing, keep working, and keep going, then every hardship I'd faced had a purpose far greater than personal success. The consequences for my parents came gradually but inevitably. The magazine article reached their church, Dad's office, and their tightly knit social circle. Friends began to distance themselves, reluctant to associate with people who had treated their own daughter so harshly. Dad was passed over for a major promotion, his supervisor citing vague character concerns raised by colleagues who had read the article. Mom was quietly asked to step down from her church volunteer board after members expressed discomfort with her continued leadership. Their carefully constructed reputation crumbled. Even Gregory's parents stopped inviting them to gatherings, unwilling to expose me to their presence now that I had become a welcome part of family events again. In the end, they had traded their daughter for pride and control, and lost both, along with the respect of those around them. I built something far greater than revenge. I built a life so rich, full, and meaningful that their absence no longer mattered. My team became my chosen family. My work became my joy and legacy. Every morning, I woke up in the home I earned, went to the business I built, and lived the life I chose, without needing their approval. Sometimes, on sleepless nights, I thought of that frightened girl outside the convention center 5 years ago, alone and heartbroken, and wished I could tell her that pain would one day turn into power, that losing their support would force her to soar higher than she ever could with their safety net. The real revenge wasn't in the confrontation at that dinner or in the article that exposed them. The revenge was becoming someone so fulfilled, so strong, so undeniably happy that they would spend the rest of their lives wondering what could have been, if only they had chosen love over control.